Writing sermon introductions can be very challenging at times. Very often I'm asked, how do you do it and what is the easiest way? What are some best practices? Now, while I'm not suggesting that these are the only things you can do, I'm offering 7 options to consider. Number 1, write your introduction after you have completed your research study and identify the main themes. In other words, after you have done your exegesis and designated your focus points, you are in a better position to see the direction of the sermon, and then you can clearly introduce what you intend to say. Number 2, start by using the text. And what I mean is talk about special features of the text. Talk about the author. Talk about its familiarity or its obscurity. For example, John chapter 3 and verse 16 is a favorite passage of many individuals. You may want to highlight the fact that this is one of the most familiar passages in the Bible. And you can also elucidate on what others have said about the text. Or, if you do not want to speak about the familiarity of the text, you could talk about the inconspicuousness of the text. You can talk about the fact that not many individuals preach on this text, if that's the case with the text that you are preaching. Number 3, start with the author. You can talk about the situation or context from which the author wrote. You also can talk about the author's background and note if this text comes before or after a well-known significant event in the author's life. This will help to bring the hearers into the text. Number 4, start with a story. Many preachers find this very easy to do because it helps to lead them into the main point that they wish to make. Now, when you tell a story at the beginning of your sermon, ensure that the story serves as a path to the central theme of the sermon. In Toastmasters, speakers are encouraged to use stories as icebreakers for their speeches. But with preaching, stories are not for icebreakers. They are used to smoothly lead people into the primary thought or the idea of the sermon. And so you can use a story to start. Number 5, start with contemporary issues. You may want to use a news report or a significant event, something that is buzzing in the air. Or it may be that it's not buzzing in the air. It may be an event that took place under the radar, a discovery or an invention that is not on the front page or not reported in the news. But if you are able to pull that and start with it, it may heighten the interest of those who are listening. Number 6, start with a unique feature of the main character in the text. Maybe you want to talk about bravery or valor or courage. Or maybe you want to talk about fear or timidity. For example, depending on the context, you may talk about David and his bravery, or Gideon and his valor, or Esther and her courage. Maybe you want to talk about Moses and his fearfulness and Timothy and his timidity. Defining these unique features of the main character and then linking them to the main point can serve as an excellent way to start. Finally, you can start with a description of the setting. Every passage has a backdrop, a background in which it occurs, and a well-worded description of the scenery or the situation will immediately grab the listener's attention. Sermon introductions are very important. This is where people decide whether or not they're going to listen to you. It means, therefore, you need to give them that assurance and that reason to continue to listen to what God has placed upon your heart. Start strong. Start confidently. Do not start with apology and speak about your inadequacies. If you feel inadequate for the moment, allow someone who is adequate to preach. God has selected you for that moment. Therefore, with humility, rise and preach by the power of the Holy Spirit.